It gives me great pleasure to introduce the Spring 2012 featured speaker in the second annual Gene Grandchamp Speaker Series, Dr. James Corwin, our colleague, who is professor of biology and has been since 2006. And he joined us after 20 years working in sustainable agriculture in Central America and the Caribbean. Dr. Corwin, Jim, has an associate degree from the Altena Community College, a Bachelor of Arts from the University of Michigan, a Master of Science from Central Michigan University, and a doctoral degree from Michigan State University. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. James Corwin.
Does this microphone work? Does it help, or do I need to speak up?
Speak up.
Speak up. Okay. Well, thank you. I guess it's an honor to be able to do this talk. I haven't really thought I would be doing this. I think it's an honor. We'll see. We'll see how it goes with between the computer and my brain, if we can get it to work. But the topic, what I wanted to introduce it is I want you all the time from getting started is to be thinking about what good news do you have about sustainability? What good points do you think about that are happening in sustainability, either that you personally have been involved in or that you have good knowledge about? And to be thinking about that, because there's going to be an opportunity for you to share that with the rest of us if we get to that. I want to just talk about good news today, but I do need to lay some sort of context for what we're talking about. And the remote doesn't work, so I have to keep going back and forth. That'll give me some walking room. But just keep in mind, when we're talking about sustainability, we're talking about various aspects of sustainability, including things with climate, obviously, is a big issue. Energy is something everybody thinks about immediately with sustainability. Water and soil, people who are involved in natural resources think about. And food, of course, people who are in agriculture or anybody who eats food should be thinking about. And these things all then affect our economy, our society, our health, and our education. And so that's kind of the background of what we're talking about today. I'm going to focus primarily on energy and food, but of course that relates to everything else throughout the topic. Again, I promise it's good news, but I want to make sure we have a clear understanding of what the unsustainable stuff is, why we need the good news, why we need to be doing all of this. And it's simply because there's a lot of unsustainable stuff going on. The big one is carbon dumping, both into the atmosphere and into water, and the effects that that's having on our environment and on our economy and our health and so on. Non-renewable use of energy, primarily fossil fuel or oil-based energy. Over-pumping of water, primarily in what are called fossil wells. Fossil wells, by the way, if you're not familiar with the term, refers to aquifers that are not recharging. They were recharged, or they were charged at one time because of the ice age or because of plate tectonics and so on. They're a great big source of water that are a wealthy resource for people who live near them, but they are not recharging. We tend to think of a well as a place that's part of a water cycle. Fossil wells are not. The Ogallala Aquifer, which is the largest aquifer in North America, is a fossil well. It is not going to be recharged. So once it's drained, that's it. There won't be any more water. That's an issue, over-pumping, and much of our agriculture today is dependent on over-pumping of water, pumping more than can be replenished. Less and less fertile soil is an issue. We're losing fertility in our soil. We're losing soil itself. Just an example of how that plays out Today we have quarter apples. When you buy an apple in the store, if you buy a commercial apple, it's a quarter apple. It's not a whole apple. That means you need to eat 4 apples today to get the nutrients that your parents got out of an apple. They have about a quarter of the nutrients because the soil that they are raised on is so depleted that the plant can't put nutrients in its fruit that aren't there. So we have a problem with our food quality. And then we have, of course, this issue of 1,000-mile salads. We get our salads primarily, certainly in the wintertime, from far away. And they may be 1,000 miles, they may be more than that. If they're coming out of California, they're far more than that. A lot of shipping, a lot of handling, a lot of transport, a lot of loss of freshness, and a lot of jobs locally are bypassed and not available. And at the same time that we're enjoying 1,000-mile salads, there are at least 1 billion people on the planet who are undernourished or malnourished. So that's socially, that's not very equitable. And so that's an issue with unsustainability. What it boils down to today as a planet, as a human population, we are consuming 150% of what the Earth is able to provide us. That would be equivalent to you earning $100, just to use simple numbers because that's all I can handle right now. If you were to earn $100 a week, but spend $150 that week, you could probably get away with that. But if you do that the next week, and then the next week, and the next week, where's that going? What's going to happen? It doesn't take a genius to figure out, that's not sustainable. That's big trouble down the road. That's what we're doing with Earth's resources. We're using 150% more. We're using 50% more than it has. And it's inevitable. It's going to be a problem at some point. So that's sort of the background. And I don't want to trivialize any of these issues by talking about good stuff. I'm not saying that we've solved these issues or that we've overcome them or we don't need to worry about them. That's not the point. The point is there are some serious issues and we can't forget these. But we also, I think, should be paying attention to the good things that are going on, the positive things, what's been accomplished, the people that are working hard, the creative people, hardworking people, dedicated people who are doing good things, and learn from them so that we can, more of us can start doing those good things and carry on with it so that we don't have to fret totally about these issues. Oops. This cartoon is a rerun from Professional Day, but I had it in this slideshow before he showed it the other day. I have it on the agriculture bulletin board down the hallway. It's been there since last year, I think. I just like it because it shows that it's really a win-win situation. It is a good situation. There's a lot of opportunities here, and even if climate change is a hoax, so what? We make the world better for other reasons. There's all kinds of good reasons to do this. It's not like, it's a problem if we accomplish that list. So let's start looking at energy first. And at the global view of energy, excuse me, that's why I have water here. And it's straight out of a wetlands. We subsidize oil today to the tune of about $560 billion a year. That's worldwide. That's not just the United States. That's to keep the oil industry happy and functioning. It takes about that much subsidy to keep things going, tax credits and so on. Within the US, it's about $200 billion. So we have a big share of the subsidy world going on. Last week, you may recall, there was a bill in the Senate that was defeated. That bill was to defeat the Republican filibuster to block the bill that would have deleted about $24 billion in oil subsidies. It would have brought them to an end. Foreign tax credits and so on that oil companies can use. That was, of course, defeated. So the subsidies continue on. In contrast to that, there are renewable energy subsidies as well. I forgot to turn off my phone, didn't I? That, by the way, is...
Rainforest?
Pardon me? That's a pygmy owl.
Pygmy owls call you?
Yes, yes. Yeah. It's an endangered species. Renewable energy gets subsidies as well. In all fairness, we need to acknowledge that. But it's about a 1/12 the level that petroleum gets. About $45 billion a year worldwide subsidies go to renewable energies, wind, solar, biomass, and so on. So where's the good news? The good news is there's an enormous resource there. There's an enormous amount of money available if we could stop feeding the wealthy oil companies and either use that money to do other things, education, health, infrastructure, or shift it to renewable energy. There's an enormous resource there that's available, big time, lots of money that could be used. So it's not like we just can't do anything because we don't have the money. The money is there. China, I don't want to compliment China on what they're doing. They're doing a lot of good things and a lot of bad things, but one very good thing they're doing, in addition to their coal factories, is they are currently building and establishing about 1 wind turbine an hour in China is going up for wind power. They now have 25,000 megawatts established today in China, and their goal is by 2015, that's a short 3 years away, is to triple that. So they will be able to produce 75,000 megawatts of power by wind power across China. That's a very positive move. They're doing the right thing in that. They're doing other things too, but I think this should be acknowledged, that this is a move in the right direction. And of course, China is not the only country putting up wind power, but I think that's a very impressive number. What's happening generally with wind power? Oh, the Mac is able to keep the windmill going. That's good. I wasn't too sure about that one. Wind generation has been very well received around the world. Since the recession, 2008, in 1 year, wind power went up 28%, the amount of wind power around the world. And this graph shows up to 2007, the increase in global wind power installed capacity. That's in gigawatts over here. So we're talking big numbers of power worldwide, and you can see the slope is going up. So China certainly isn't the only one driving that. And in 1 year, it's up almost a third. That's really good news for energy. It's still a small part of our overall energy generation. Here's in the US what we have. And as you can see, renewable energies total right now about 8% of all the energy we're generating. Wind is not quite 10% today. Solar is about 1%. The old powers of hydro and wood still dominate in terms of renewable energies, but they're not really expanding much. Hydro and wood are not expanding like biofuels and wind and solar. But that's just sort of a background of where we're at in the US today. Solar is increasing since 2000 to 2008 by 40% a year. 40% a year is the increase in solar. Now, when you have very few solar panels, it doesn't take a lot of new solar panels to make a major increase. So when you're starting small, obviously you're going to get big percentage growth. There's a mathematician here, I'm sure, who can explain that better. But we're still increasing by, on average, 40% a year. And the goal in this country is that we'll probably have that 1% today up to 10% by 2025 of solar generated power. That's a lot of solar power. Probably most of that will be in the southwest where the sun shines, but not only there. Why is that happening? What's going on to drive that? Well, there's some good things happening. The cost per kilowatt is going down for solar. It's going down every year. It's getting cheaper and cheaper. At the same time, the cost to generate fossil fuel electricity is going up. So there's an imbalance there. And it's right now, this year, about at parity. Solar photovoltaics is very competitive with fossil fuel generation. PV systems are down about 40% in the last 2 years, the cost of photovoltaic systems. If you're thinking about it, this is the time. The cost is down. The panels are more efficient. That is, you get more electricity per square foot of panel than ever. PV panels today are costing about $1 a watt for the solar panel, and there's also a 30% federal incentive to put it in. In other words, the total cost, parts, equipment, and labor of installing a panel system, a photovoltaic system, you get a 30% of that cost back from the federal government on your income taxes, which is the same as essentially cash. It is cash. And then states have incentives too. I put 75 cents a watt state. That's an average number. Some states are higher. Depends whether you live in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine. They have slightly different amounts, but it's about that much. So they're based on how much installed capacity is put in rather than the cost of the system. But that all means that you pay about 60% and the incentives cover about 40%. 40% discount's pretty significant for anything. And that's what's driving the expansion of photovoltaics. To bring it a little bit closer to home, BCC has a lot of sustainability activities. You've heard about these at different talks and different times. As you know, the college president, Jack Zabrega, has signed long ago the college president's climate commitment. That was, at the time that was done, was a very courageous type of thing to do, I think, to make that kind of commitment and open the school up to that kind of scrutiny and set some goals. A couple of tangible things that have happened that I think are, we should talk about more, that are positive things that we should be promoting. First, an energy audit was done. Anybody who's doing anything at home or in a business should do an energy audit. That's a comprehensive thing. That's the first step, is to find out where your priorities are in terms of where you're losing energy, where you can conserve energy, and where you can make it up. There was a comprehensive energy audit done, and it a place like this, that's a significant undertaking. As a result of that, high efficiency lighting and ventilation systems have been replacing the old stuff. That saves an enormous amount of electricity, stops a lot of waste. Solar panels are now up on buildings B, C, and F. You can't see them, but they're all there. There's a couple pictures from the rooftops. We have a total of 96 kilowatt production right now available, and that's functioning. And we have a green center that's offering training to people. As an educational institution, that's what we should be doing, is training people in everything from weather stripping to maintenance of solar panels to wind turbines and so on. So as an educational institution, I think we're clearly on the right track. That's not all. We have a goal to be carbon neutral by 2050. There are a couple of colleges in the country who have already declared they are carbon neutral. Some of them use some funny figures to come up with that, and some are probably pretty sincere and straightforward about it. But that's our goal, is to be carbon neutral by 2050. I don't think that's an unreasonable goal. We have plans, as you know, for a wind turbine to be up next year. There have been some delays because of the sizing and the noise and technical issues. But by 2013, we should see a wind turbine out there generating power. A bigger thing that I think is a little more exciting is there is a proposal to put solar panels over the large parking lots down here at the end. It would make that parking area look like a parking structure rather than an open parking lot. So you'd have rooftops, one-story rooftops, but the rooftops would be solar panels. And that would be a 2 megawatt system. That's a huge area. And it would be an arrangement with a company who would lease, we would lease the equipment from them, they would install it, and then we would share in the benefits from it. Not only that, your car will be able to be parked in the shade. So I think that's a great opportunity if it works out. The new science building that's been proposed needs to be, by law, a LEED certified building. And it will be a certified building, I'm sure. It has to be. If you understand the LEED certification, that involves a lot of detail in terms of how it's built and how it operates and the effects that it has, the education that's built in around the building, and so on. So there'll be a lot of improvement in the science building. And then, of course, these buildings will have to be upgraded. So there'll be improvements over here as well. So I think BCC is on the right track and making very good progress in that way. This is a video that I suspect isn't going to cooperate. So I'm going to jump down to a direct link. I'd like to, that's the energy part of the sustainability that I've talked about. Now I'd like to shift over to a couple of other topics regarding good news in sustainability and see if this will come up. I wish I had said this, what this guy says, but I'll let him say it. This is from one of the TED Talks that I'm sure you've used yourself or seen.
TV, at public schools, and pretty much everywhere else you look. It seems to me like corporations are always trying to get kids, like me, to get their parents to buy stuff that really isn't good for us or the planet. Little kids especially are attracted by colorful packaging and plastic toys. I must admit, I used to be one of them. I also used to think that all of our food came from these happy little farms where pigs rolled in mud and cows grazed on grass all day. What I discovered was this is not true. I began to look into this stuff on the internet, in books, and in documentary films, in my travels with my family. I discovered the dark side of the industrialized food system. First, there's genetically engineered seeds and organisms. That is when a seed is manipulated in a laboratory to do something not intended by nature, like taking the DNA of a fish and putting it into the DNA of a tomato. Yuck. Don't get me wrong, I like fish and tomatoes, but this is just creepy. The seeds are then planted, then grow. The food they produce has been proven to cause cancer and other problems in lab animals. And people have been eating food produced this way since the 1990s. And most folks don't even know they exist. Did you know rats that genetically engineered corn have developed signs of liver and kidney toxicity? These include kidney inflammation and lesions and increased kidney weight. Yet almost all the corn we eat has been altered genetically in some way. And let me tell you, corn isn't everything. And don't even get me started on the confined animal feeding operations called CAFOs. Conventional farmers use chemical fertilizers made from fossil fuels. They mix with the dirt to make plants grow. They do this because they strip the soil from all nutrients from growing the same crop over and over again. Next, more harmful chemicals are sprayed on fruits and vegetables, like pesticides and herbicides, to kill weeds and bugs. When it rains, these chemicals seep into the ground or run off into our waterways, poisoning our water too. Then they irradiate our food, trying to make it last longer, so it can travel thousands of miles from where it's grown to the supermarkets. So I asked myself, how can I change? How can I change these things? This is what I found out. I discovered that there's a movement for a better way. Now, a while back, I wanted to be an NFL football player. I decided that I'd rather be an organic farmer instead. Now,
did you hear that?
and that way I can have a greater impact on the world. This man, Joel Salatin, they call him a lunatic farmer because he grows against the system. Since I'm homeschooled, I went to go hear him speak one day. This man, this lunatic farmer, doesn't use any pesticides, herbicides, or genetically modified seeds. And so for that, he's called crazy by the system. I want you to know that we can all make a difference by making different choices, by buying our food directly from local farmers or neighbors we know in real life. Some people say organic or local food is more expensive, but is it really? With all these things I've been learning about the food system, it seems to me that we can either pay the farmer or we can pay the hospital. I know. Now I know definitely which one I would choose. I want you to know that there are farms out there, like Bill Keener and Sequatchie Coast Farms in Tennessee, whose cows do eat grass and whose pigs do roll in the mud, just like I thought. Sometimes I go to Bill's farm and volunteer so I can see up close and personal where the meat I eat comes from. I want you to know that I believe kids will eat fresh vegetables and good food that know more about it and where it really comes from. I want want you to know that there are farmers markets in every community popping up. I want you to know that me and my brother and sister actually like eating baked kale chips. I try to share this everywhere I go. Not too long ago, my uncle said that he offered my 6-year-old cousin cereal. He asked if he wanted organic toasted O's or the sugar-coated flakes. You know, the one with the big striped cartoon character on the front. My little cousin told his dad that he would rather have the organic toasted O's cereal because Bert said he shouldn't eat sparkly cereal. And that, my friends, is how we can make a difference, one kid at a time. So next time you're at the grocery store, think local. Choose organic, know your farm, and know your food. Thank you.
Well, aside from the content of his message, the great news, I think, is there's an 11-year-old kid out there saying that. 11 years old. What were you doing when you were 11 years old? and he's not the only one. That is terrific that that message is getting started. That's where it needs to happen. That's, I think, where the message has to be sinking in. And there's an example of somebody who's doing it and doing it very well. Aside from, of course, the positive message that he has. Looking at education a little bit in terms of, well, if people are going to start changing their behaviors and their lifestyles, sometimes that involves education because people need to know. This is just a short list of a number of schools that I'm aware of that have specific sustainability programs functioning at the school. There are a lot of universities and colleges have courses, specific courses going that are fine, but these are schools that have an entire program, so they're offering degrees in sustainability. And you can see that there's quite a number all over the country. The ones in green are from New England, they may be ones that you recognize: Tufts, UMass, Vermont, Maine, New Hampshire, and so on. And there's even, there's a couple up here, Marshalltown Community College and Central Carolina Community College. Community College are also offering degrees and certificates in sustainability. So this is a topic that 10 years ago was unheard of at the college level. It was not talked about in any sense as a serious academic program or curriculum. And yet now all of the top universities in the country are offering courses and programs in this area. That's real progress. In addition to schools, there's an abundance of organizations that are being formed at all different levels for sustainable education in sustainability. One of the most creative, I think, is the Sustainable Agriculture Education Association. This is a network of faculty, educators, teachers, professors, and so on from all over the country. It's a professional organization to promote teaching and learning of sustainable methods, sustainable agriculture, and other sustainable issues. That's a fairly new organization, but it has a wide membership. They have conferences and they have meetings. They do all those sort of things, but they're institutionalized and doing well. Right in our own area here, we have the Northeast Organic Farming Association, better known as NOFA. That's 6 states that have combined together, farmers, growers, researchers, technicians, consumers, who all come together for the purpose of educating each other and educating the public about sustainable agriculture and promoting that through their conferences and meetings and documents, and they have workshops all over the place. And then some people here may know about SAR, the Sustainable Agriculture Research and Education. This is a part of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. It's a federal agency, and they offer a lot of grants and funding to fund research. Primarily what they like to fund are farmers. They like to get on-farm studies so that it's very practical and very visible for people to come up with new techniques, new technologies, and get sustainable agriculture going. And again, the U.S. Department of Agriculture 10 years ago wouldn't even use those words. Organic agriculture, that was almost, an unacceptable term. That was a 4-letter word, as it was at many universities. When I was at Michigan State, organic agriculture was not serious. That's not real agriculture. Today, it's big stuff. It's big buildings. They've finally realized, as people become more and more educated, this is something we need to do. That's a lot of changes in behavior and thought among people, and good progress. So how's it playing out? In 1990, organic food sales and non-food, be like fiber, cotton, and so on, 1990 was about $1 billion nationwide. Sounds like a lot, but it's $1 billion. It's a drop in the bucket. And then we see the progress up to 2010. We're now at 2010, $26.7 billion in organic production across the country. And I don't have figures for 2011, but it's going up every year. A recent survey, a census done by the U.S. Department of Agriculture of farmers, and what are your plans? Because this is a big issue. There's a big concern about what are farmers going to be doing, what are they interested in. 78% of organic farmers confirm that their plans are either to maintain what they're producing, because many are at capacity, or expand it. 78% are going to maintain or expand it. They're optimistic about the future of organic production. So people who are in it, that is not what you find when you talk to industrial farmers or conventional farmers. You don't find that optimism about their profession. Here's a graph just showing that growth and what it's comprised of. And you can see fruits and vegetables are obviously a big part of organic production all the way across from 97 to 2008. And then we see other things like dairy and livestock and so on. But it's a clear upward trend and continues. The last numbers I have are for 2008 because the agricultural census is done every 5 years, and so the new census is due out this year. And so there'll be a whole bunch of new numbers coming out soon. But that gives you a trend up, and even during the recession, as you can see, it was still going up. In Massachusetts, a little more local. In 2002, there were 129 certified organic farms out of a total of 624 farms in the state. Now, a certified organic farm is one that's gone through a certification process. It takes a minimum of 3 years to become certified, and it takes a lot of record keeping to maintain that certification. So a lot of farmers are essentially organic, but they're not certified just because they don't want to deal with the bureaucracy and the paperwork. And they have no reason to, because they're already selling everything they can grow. So what's the advantage to them? It's an expense of time and so on, so they don't do it. So that's a conservative number of how many are organic in any place. They had a sales of 7.8, almost $8 million in 2002. 2007, the last census showed that number is up now to 295 organic farmers, certified organic farmers out of 777. You notice the number of farms is going up in the state as well, of all farms. And they're up to a little over $17 million in sales. I've seen numbers considerably higher than that 17.5 million, as high as 34 million, double that. So it's, the census is the best source of data that we have about what's going on in agriculture, but I also know from my own personal experience, when somebody from the federal government comes to your door and starts asking questions about how much money do you make, and how much do you sell, and how much do you earn, sometimes the data they get isn't probably entirely correct. So it's the best data that's available, but you don't expect people to just tell you everything in that situation, because a lot of commerce is done directly. Sales of organic farms has doubled, and it's up 51% in that time period, from 2002 to 2007. The sales per farm has been doubling versus conventional farming, where it has been going up a little bit, but not significantly. More locally, in 2011, in southeastern Massachusetts and Rhode Island, through the Organic Ag program here, we were able to identify a little over 170 farms in southern Bristol County, in southern Plymouth County, and a couple in eastern Rhode Island area who are organic, certified organic, or as I say, they're either in transition to organic certification, or they're, for all practical purposes, organic. They're just not officially organic. 170 farms in this area, just this part of southern Massachusetts and a little bit of Rhode Island. It is an exploding opportunity for people to get into. Some other good news from our neighbor to the north, where I happen to live. Vermont is #1 in the Northeast for organic farms and sales. This state with almost no population actually leads the area. It ranks #10 in the country in terms of organic farms and production, which I think is pretty amazing. But in Vermont, most of that, 60% of organic production in Vermont is dairy, organic dairy farms. So there's a lot of cows, which necessarily means there's a lot of manure in Vermont. Well, Central Vermont Power Company has entered into agreements with a number of larger dairy farms, and they've put in biogas generators, which generate methane from the manure, and then that methane is used to drive generators on the farms, which then puts the current into the grid and is part of their source. It's more economical to do that than it is to build new diesel generators, or certainly nuclear power plants or hydro plants. And so people then can select in your power, just like you can here if you want renewable energy. You can select, among other things, cow power. And of course for that you pay a premium because it's a premium. It's not subsidized like diesel is. And they advertise it as renewable energy, one cow at a time. That's an amazing sort of collaboration between an electrical generating power company and dairy farmers, where both of them now are benefiting and doing a very important good thing. And that was about a month or 2 months ago, I saw an announcement that they've opened up a new dairy farm generating plant. So they're continuing to do this. It's growing more and more because the demand is there. And it's better for them to do that than put in conventional generators. I saw this on the University of Massachusetts website. This is on their homepage for their Sustainable Food and Farming program. University of Massachusetts in Amherst has a Sustainable Food and Farming program. They have a 2-year degree, an associate's degree, and they have a 4-year bachelor's degree. This is right at the top of their homepage. Sustainable agriculture has been proposed by the United Nations and World Watch Institute as a way to increase global access to food and so on. And peak oil expert, who we all know about, he's been here himself, Richard Heinberg has suggested we need 50 million new farmers in this country. And people who are trained in this, obviously we need trained farmers, will have economic opportunities in the future. And another comment that's on their page is that many of the jobs of the future that we're trying to figure out, where are these people going to work? Many of those jobs haven't even been invented yet. Just think of the jobs that exist today that 10 years ago, who would have thought of some of the things that people do today in technology and so on. There's a lot of jobs that still have to be invented. To me, the importance of this is a major university putting this on the top of their webpage. They really have committed to this. They believe it, they buy into it, and they're putting it out there for their students, their faculty, and the public to know about. The statements that they're making there, I don't think will probably shake up anybody in this room. You've probably read something similar to that elsewhere before. But we're seeing this more and more in high-profile places in being promoted by major institutions that are behind this. That's good, I think. A little more local, what's going on with organic agriculture in this area? In the US, farmers, organic farmers particularly, had an issue with marketing. It doesn't do you a lot of good to grow great food if you don't have some place to sell it, unless you're going to eat it all yourself. In 1970, which is about the time I did my first farmers market, when I used to go to farmers markets and sell, there were 340 farmers markets known in the country. And these were pretty informal, small, poorly organized, random things that popped up here and there in parking lots at that time. Today, there are over 7,000 farmers markets across the country. And they are everywhere, and every year there's new ones popping up as people, there's a market, there's a demand for this product, and farmers are interested in taking it to them. In southeastern Massachusetts, we have an organization called CMAP, Southeastern Massachusetts Agricultural Partnerships. And their whole existence is built around connecting producers with buyers. So if you've got an organic farm and you want to know, well, where can I sell my stuff? They have connections with restaurants, with grocery stores, with food co-ops, with schools who are interested in that market. So making that bridge for producers and helping consumers who want to know where can we get it for our cafeteria or for our store. CMAP is now an organization doing just that. This didn't exist. And this has always been a weak part of agriculture in my mind, is that marketing is always kind of falls short. Farmers don't fail because they can't grow something. They usually fail because they don't sell it well. And they get into economic difficulties. The development of farmers market has continued. We now see winter farmers markets. Some farmers markets go 12 months out of the year. Who can imagine a farmers market in January in New England? But because there are now producers growing 12 months out of the year in unheated facilities, unheated hoop houses. You can grow anything in a heated greenhouse, but in unheated things, which makes it sustainable, makes it economical. Community education is developing through CMAP as well. Another marketing thing that's been developing that is really kind of amazing when you start looking at these things and how creative they are. Back in the 70s, there was a guy from Tuskegee University who came out with this idea of memberships at a farm, where people could pay a membership up front and then be guaranteed a discounted price by buying from that farm. Well, and that was a pretty good idea at the time, but it's gone way beyond that today. Now we have what are called community supported agriculture, or CSAs, and there are all kinds of CSAs by all kinds of farms. But essentially, if you're not familiar with them, you simply buy a share in that farm each year. It's sort of like a membership. In fact, what it is you're giving the farm a loan. So the farmer doesn't have to go to the bank to get a loan and pay interest. The farmer goes to its consumers and gets a small loan from each one. And then in return for giving them the loan up front in the beginning of the year, the farmer gets the capital to buy the seed and the supplies and get everything going. Everybody shares a little bit of the risk. Traditionally, farmers bear all of the burden of the risk, whether it's for weather, for economics, for market conditions. It's always been the farmer. Well, farmers become ultra-conservative under those conditions, and they tend not to pioneer things. They don't want to innovate. They don't want to try new ideas because it's risky. Under these conditions, they share the risk with their consumers, so they're much more innovative, much more progressive in what they do. And today we have known over 4,000 CSAs going on around the country. And they're all kinds. The CSA I belong to, you pay a certain amount and you're guaranteed then to buy, I pay $400 for the year. I can buy $400 worth of goods from that farm during the year. I can buy anything I want. I can buy $400 worth of eggs if I want. That's all I want. Or I can buy different things each week at a guaranteed 20% discount from their retail price. Well, that's my interest, is that 20%. How many people here can invest their money today at 20% return? It's pretty tough to do it legally anyway. So these and there's all kinds of versions of CSAs that are going on. This is really driving a lot of small organic farms and getting people going because they have a market that's only limited by their own creativity. Now, there are some other programs, trying to watch your time. There are some other programs around the country. Some are in Massachusetts. Agriculture in the Classroom has been going for a few years. This is a farm and school partnership where farmers are trying to help schools and teachers and students learn things like, well, what is food? Most kids don't even know where it comes from, much less what it is. And they get to learn who their farmers are, who are farmers, what do they do, and understand what their food is all about. It's a great way to get to parents, because parents, of course, being adults, tend to be a little more resistant to different ideas. But by getting the kids out, you'll notice there's somebody you may recognize in that classroom up there involved in it. So right from the top, we're getting support in this field of getting kids back, not necessarily getting them back to the land, but getting them knowledgeable about what their food is, where it comes from, what agriculture is, so that they can identify with it and appreciate it and support it. And of course, it's always been known that well-nourished children do academically much better than poorly nourished children do. So it's not bad that way either. Another program in Massachusetts, Farm to School project, is meant to link schools specifically with growers. So if a school is interested in incorporating locally grown organic type foods into their menus, this organization will find the sources for them. They'll help negotiate an agreement between them for sale, quantity and price and what and so on, and help set up arrangements. So they're helping the schools get into better food supplies, and they're helping farmers get a better, more reliable market for their product. And of course the teachers and the students get involved. They start learning about where the food comes from, how much it costs, why do we pay this much, why don't we pay that much, why is industrial food so cheap versus why is organic food seem to cost more. If you listen to the boy, he told you why, because it's subsidized and it doesn't do a whole lot for your health. A little more local, trying to focus in a little bit here. A couple of community colleges in Massachusetts that have, I think, done some interesting things. Greenfield Community College has a new food service contract. We're involved in that at this time as well. Their new food service contract requires that the concessioner provides at least 20% of the food from local sources. It has to be 20% local. That's realistic. You can't say 100% because they may run into trouble in January with some things, or maybe there isn't anybody producing just what you need for local food. But 20% is a good start, and that gets them connected and gets things starting. They also require that their food is labeled by what farm does it come from and what town does it come from. So when people see the food, they know where it actually came from. That's part of their agreement. Right here at Bristol Community College, and I was hoping a couple people might contribute to this, we have a student organization that started not that long ago called Seeds of Sustainability that's been active. There were some cards back there. If they're still there, I'm not sure. Doing some workshops. They've been doing a number of other things. You may remember last spring, a year ago, they had a plant sale outside, and they'll be doing that similar this year. And we have a standing committee, which is now a sustainability committee. It started off as kind of an informal group of people talking, and now it's an official committee that Nancy chairs. And we have the Post-Carbon Institute that Nancy is leading. And we have a new food service contract. I don't know if we're going to be able to do what Greenfield did, but I'm hoping we'll make some steps in that direction in terms of sustainability, composting, recycling, food sources, food quality, and so on. And I know Mark, who's a student here, is on that committee that's been working with that new contract. Seeds of Sustainability. Mark, did you want to say a little bit about what the student group does?
I'm a student here at BCC, and I started the organic farming program about 2 years ago. I'm a graphic designer by trade, so at that time I was asking myself, what's the opposite of graphic design? And I ended up in the program. And it's not like, you know, I had sort of foundation in gardening, so I kind of liked it. And what I really got introduced to was, the first class I was taking with the professor was Food, Famine, Global Village. What I got interested in was this whole sustainability movement. I knew about organic, and maybe on a stereotypical, you think of like sustainability as a fringe movement. But then the more I investigated it, the more I found it was really quite inclusive. It really involves everybody at all levels. We started the Seeds of Sustainability about a year ago, this time last year. What our main purpose is really to just sort of give awareness to organic farming is very important, but also the sustainability. We're pretty active, we're an active group, and we started this workshop series based on sustainability. So it could be as far as like starting your own seeds, you know, to create micro agriculture. You can start your own garden, you know, why you don't have to be a farmer, you can be a farmer in your backyard. To even like, you know, to some sustainable solutions are save money. You can make your own laundry detergent. You don't have to be duped by marketers, you know. You don't have to spend an expensive amount of money, you know, a large amount of money on a very simple item. So we're trying to create different solutions for different things. And we're extremely active. I know everybody in the club is, you know, we're really sort of energized. It's a labor of, it's a passion. You know, it's a labor of love, and we don't think of it as a job or a burden. We kind of like doing this. We have a workshop going on as we speak, so there's a lot going on campus right now on Wednesdays, which is a positive thing. It's a really good thing. And personally, myself, I don't think I'm going to be a organic farmer. Nothing against it. It's just it's not my niche. My niche, I think, is to be a troublemaker. And I really like activism. I have to thank Professor Wood for that, because I really like bringing awareness. Like, as Roger Patel would say, there's a vast disconnect between what's grown in farms and what ends up on our plates. I ended up managing a small garden at the Harbor House in Bedford. Through the program, I had to do a practicum, and some of the hours I was making a small garden. And some of the kids were helping me there. It's a halfway house. It's sort of a homeless shelter, and for families. And so I had some of the kids help me in the garden, and we were making lettuce. And finally, I did something right, and the lettuce was growing really abundantly. And the kids said, "Oh, now we can have BLTs." And I'm thinking, nothing against BLTs. I like BLTs, but maybe a salad. So this kind of was a catalyst to what I'm working on this semester, which is it's called the Food and Attendance Project. And it's just this idea of being able to cook from scratch. So if you can cook from scratch, make things in bulk and save money, I think they're small solutions, but they work. And if it really takes hold, they'll have that knowledge for a lifetime, and then hopefully they can inspire other generations. Just in case in point, one of our fellow members of Seeds of Sustainability, Julia, she learned how to make Italian meals from her mom, who was in Italy during World War II. And so she has all this knowledge. I brought her over for a workshop for this project on Monday. And the 4 or 5 of us were learning how to make lasagna from scratch. And I had this one woman who is full-blooded Italian, and she said, "I never knew how to make pasta sauce." So here you have a connection between somebody, like, you know, a mature person from one generation, inspiring and teaching somebody from another generation. And that's all I'm doing. If it works, I get out of the way and just let these connections be made. So as far as the program is concerned, sustainability is all inclusive. A lot of people want to be farmers. They want to be, some people want to really be good gardeners. Me, I just kind of like to bring awareness, and I like the activist side of it. But that's where I stand.
Good, thank you. Nancy, would you like to give us a little good news update on either the committee or the Post-Carbon Institute?
Well, I have a little bit of news on both. Just going back to the wind turbine and the coverings that are going into all those parking lots along the side as we come in. I found out from Leo Racine at our meeting this past Monday, our Sustainability Committee meeting, that will cover 60 weeks, more than a year, 60 weeks of energy generation for this campus.
So the power company will owe us at the end of the year.
That's right.
Sweet.
Okay. So that's, that's a real plus. Another thing that's happening this, hopefully by the end of the semester, is that we will have 3 hydration stations put into place. We're trying to get plastic bottles off the campus, and this is going to be a long slug, but we're working at it. But there are going to be 3 put into place. One will be in Building D. We decided to do it in D because we want the administrators to see what a benefit this is. Right? The second one will go in G Building because that's the most used building in terms of everyone going through it at some point. And then over in E Building on the first floor, because there's a big area there where there's all kinds of machines, soda machines and so forth, so we're going to have the hydration machine there. So there'll be 3 hydration machines put in. We're working on getting 3 or 4 recharging stations for electric vehicles. So hopefully within another year or so we'll have those up and running. As a committee, we, the agriculture program here at BCC is going through some transitions. And I think it's a very positive sign because I think it's going to become a much firmer and more vibrant program as a result. But we put together a letter of support and sent it to the CWCC. And we have an SOS member, a Seeds of Sustainability representative. Sue Dutra is our representative. And let's see, what else have we been doing? Oh, we're going to put up an energy dashboard counter on our website, on BCC's website. I'm not quite sure when that's going up, but we'll be able to, especially once we get the wind turbine going and the roofing, the solar panel roofing over the parking lots, we'll have lots of energy reports to do. So that will be up and running, hopefully. In terms of ISBE, the Institute for Sustainability and Post-Carbon Education, as probably most of you know, I have the fellowship for this year, and my task has been to work on the sustainability book group, which is trying to get people to think about sustainability and how to incorporate it into their classes. And this takes a period of time to get up and running, but I'm really excited about it because I've been talking a lot, working a lot with Kevin Forgard, who is our instructional designer on campus. And we're putting together a really dynamite framework where people can go in. Hopefully this will be up and running for next fall. We're working on it now. We'll be introducing a baby version of it at our April 25th meeting that's coming up. But it'll be a repository of information that people can go to either get general information about all kinds of aspects of sustainability or to go into a particular discipline. So if you're a historian or an engineer or a physicist or a sociologist, there'll be a specific place, specific information that's related to your field dealing with sustainability. And then we'll have some counseling sessions too to help people get up and running with getting sustainability education to their courses. So it takes a while to get this going, but Kevin and I are really excited about this because we think this is so good that we take this on the road. So that's what we're doing. So that's what we're doing.
Great, thank you. I wanted to just quickly mention one other example of a student who finished the courses here and how he has gone off and done a very specific local thing. Leland Hutchinson, who's on the right there, you maybe see him around campus, you can't miss his red hair, as a really high energy fellow, very young and very ambitious. I was a little bit concerned about what he was going to get himself into, but he's charged off, taken over a family farm that was essentially abandoned and run down. And this is what he started with in the greenhouse. The tree is already gone, but there was a tree growing up in the middle of it here. That's what they started with. They did a whole lot of this kind of stuff. In other words, dirty, hard work. And now they have this. They have a greenhouse. These are plants today, this week, are being transplanted out. One of the reasons he didn't want to come today was because it's going to be such a nice day. They are transplanting out of the greenhouse into the raised beds, and they're taking advantage of this weather. That's one student who's come out of here and has gone off doing something really fantastic on his family's farm up north. And what I mentioned at the beginning of the talk was I wanted you to be thinking about what you have been doing, or what you know somebody has been doing, that is also good news in sustainability. Because I know everybody here knows of specific examples, maybe many, of good things that have happened. And that's what I think we need to learn about. We need to be aware of the issues, but we also need to be paying attention to what's going on, what's being accomplished, how it's being done, and learn from that so that we can actually start doing things beyond wringing our hands and sweating about it. And I know we're just about out of time because there's, I believe, a class in here soon. We could invite them to come in and join us, but they may not want to do that. But does anybody else in here want to quickly offer something that they're aware of, that either you have accomplished, or you know somebody who has accomplished, that you think should be respected and should be recognized and should be known?
Right
Jim?
now there are in Little Compton some farms, some organic farms where you might buy a contract, as you mentioned earlier, and then you have you and your family, by the way, your extended family, can acquire, vegetables when they are harvested as part of your household food supply. Yeah. And it's quite reasonable. There's all kind. I know a number of people here belong to CSAs. It's amazing that as far as organic producers, 1% of organic produce is sold through CSAs today. 1%. It's almost trivial, the amount. But yet it's such a big thing because it's direct to consumer who use it. And so people are really excited about it. It's a way to get your food directly and know who you're getting. And you feel like you're part of the program, not just picking it off the shelf someplace and who knows what's in it.
I'm David Smith. I think I'm the original graduate of the CSA program. So that was 2 years ago.
2 years ago. He was the first certificate out of the organic ag program.
And I did the internship program, which convinced me that I went through the program 30 or 40 years too late. So like Mark, I'm really not going to be a farmer either. But I have tried to stay involved with the local farming, and I recently joined the newly formed Agricultural Commission of Rochester, and hope to help farmers, local farmers, in any way I can to keep them in business. And also, one of my goals is to put together people like the red-headed fellow that Jim talked about with farmland. There's a lot of farmland in Rochester, as there is in Dartmouth and Westport and some of our local towns, that is no longer farmed, and the people that own it tend to be kind of from my generation, and they're not really going to start farming it either. So if we can figure out a way to put that land together with young people that do want to farm it, I think that will lend towards sustainability.
Good. Thank you. Yes?
Yeah, I live in Rhode Island, and the Southside Community Land Trust is an organization that was started in Central Providence, in a low-income community, over 30 years ago. And it has fostered gardening in inner city lots throughout the south side of Providence. and encourages organic and provides workshops for the community. And it's a great example of really integrating folks who may not come, a lot of immigrant folks who come in with farming traditions from their home countries and haven't been sure how to exercise those here. So if you look up their website, the Southside Community Land Trust, there's all sorts of workshops, opportunities to buy, and it's a fantastic organization.
Yeah, and urban agriculture is becoming more and more important as we're an urban nation, and that's where people are. Did you?
I did. I belong to a CSA that just started last year, and this year they're teaming with a local restaurant, which is an organic restaurant. They bought a food truck so that they can go into, I live in Plymouth, and they're going to go in Plymouth, down by the rock, sell local organic food and talk about the importance of local farming and organics, which is really cool. I was wondering if there are any CSFs in this area. I know there's one on the Cape and Plymouth that works together. Community-supported fisheries, so that you pre-order fish at the beginning of the year, and then as it's harvested.
I thought I saw something in the paper about somewhere along the coast, but I don't remember this.
Times in the last couple of weeks I saw something.
Yeah, there was something about it, but
on the North Shore, Cape Ann.
Yeah,
okay.
One on the Cape / Plymouth, they work together to deliver.
Yeah.
People in my neighborhood.
Seems like it could work here.
Seafood's good. Yeah. I know we've kind of pinched our time. I wish maybe we should have spent an hour and a half just having people talk about things. That would have made it a lot easier. I could have just, been a moderator instead of a talker. Or remember that next time. But I appreciate everybody coming today, and I hope you got something out of it, and I hope it gets you thinking about some of the good things that are going on and some of the good things that can happen. There are a lot of good things happening, and there's a lot more to do. So we have a lot to look forward to, I think.
Expand them.
Expand them and come up. There's new things coming up all the time. That's why we need a lot of these really young people, because they have these crazy ideas that don't make any sense to us and we never would have thought of, but they work better. And we did it once ourselves, and so we know what it's like. The young kids like Steve here. Okay, well.